You're listening to Errol Parker and Clancy Overall, editors of the Batuta Advocate, on Desert Rock FM. Welcome back to the Batuta Advocate radio show, recording live here in downtown Batuta. And today, on this streak of interviewing Australian talent that we wouldn't be able to otherwise get outside of a pandemic, everyone's a bit more available. So Errol and I are wrapped today to be able to talk to one of our heroes, a man that has informed Australian television as we know it, and a real mainstayer of this world, radio.
It's getting ridiculous.
He's a Newcastle boy. He allegedly taught the Johns brothers how to party. He served as the inspiration for many Silverchair songs.
Yep. And somehow through all this remained a Rabbitohs fan.
Yeah.
Mikey Robbins, thank you.
Hey guys, thanks for having me in. Yeah, you're right. There's bugger all else to do. So what the hell? nice to be amongst you, as Jesus would say.
It's interesting now. Someone like yourself, Mikey, who spent so much time on television, so much time on the screen, really. From our perspective, you're probably only working one day a week, were you? Or?
Yeah. yeah. The whole time Good News Week was on, Paul and the writers, they're in there 4 or 5 days a week. I'd just turn up on taping day.
And riffed.
Yeah, basically for 25 years of my career, turning up was 90% of what I did.
Well, we always kind of, that was a question was going to be, what are you doing with yourself nowadays? But the question should be, what were you doing with yourself for 4 days of the week back then?
Well, actually, what I'm doing now is I've just passed the halfway point on my next book. And I realised when I finished my first book, I put more work into that than I'd put into the previous 20 years. That was like a four-hour-a-day job writing an 80,000-word book. So, I'm writing my quirky history books. The first two have done pretty well, and I'm doing a history podcast. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
Because I've reached that age where most comedians do. You reach my age, and it's either like, I'm still breathing, so I should do a history thing.
And I'm still funny. I've still got it.
Oh, mate, pull my finger.
Well, speaking of history, we want to go back to the very start, as Errol mentioned before. Newcastle boy. Yeah. Newcastle High, Newcastle Uni.
Yeah.
You could have stayed in Newcastle.
I could have, mate. I could have. I was doing a bit of theatre. I won a Conda, hey, City of Newcastle Drama Award. All right, put that on your CV.
Conda.
Yeah, I know. What a bizarre name. And then what happened was I joined a cabaret group called the Castanet Club, which had been kicking around for a while.
Okay.
And that got me out of town, got me to Sydney, and then I toured with them for a couple of years. And then I decided to go back and get my dip ed.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, as you do.
Yeah.
I sort of hit my mid-20s and thought I need something to fall back on.
Yeah.
And that lasted 6 weeks. I got a job dishwashing. And then in the middle of that, the group I used to be in, the Castanet Club, they still had a pretty swanky agent. And they got me in a bloke called Warren Coleman gig on Jono and Deno's Saturday Morning Live, writing sketches.
Really?
Excuse me, I'm just burping now. Writing and performing sketches. And the first sketch we ever did was it Betty and the King? It was a cooking segment with him dressed in sort of 1960s cooking show drag.
Yep.
It gets better. And because I had an Elvis suit, long story, it was a cooking segment with Elvis, but Elvis didn't actually speak normal English. Elvis sort of spoke like, Tim Tam smoothie, mama. His recipes were for Tim Tam smoothies, and the punchline would be he'd get halfway through a Tim Tam smoothie, and Elvis would have a heart attack with the immortal words, pump it, no more. And from that sort of, I know, it's weird.
It's good gear.
Then the other two guys we had, because it was 1989, the other two characters we had were Glasnost and Perestroika, two Russian exchange roadies. I don't know where that came from. But anyway, from that got me a gig writing sketches on Triple J, and then that got me the start of what was my career at the age of 29.
See, you sound like someone who kind of was finding your lane as it was appearing in front of you.
Oh, mate, yeah, I've never had a plan. I'm an opportunist.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was writing sketches, and that didn't pay a lot of money. Mind you, more money than I'd ever made before in the business. And then I said, well, I'd like to do some on-air. I'd like to try announcing. And they said, well, do you know how to operate a radio panel? And I lied. And I said, yeah.
How hard can this be?
Well, I'll tell you. You have to remember, I don't even drive a car. I'm that mechanically inept. I lied. They gave me my first on-air shift, and I still hold the record at the Jays for taking the station off air the most amount of times in one shift. Because it was back in those days, you had to load CDs, and I kept fucking it up. And I remember that was the Saturday night, and then Monday I went in to record sketches, and there was the program director of the station. And I looked at him, and he went, so how'd you go Saturday night? And I went, he didn't listen. I went, oh, fine. He said, can you do 2 more this week? And I went, yeah. So I got my way in by lying, and I sort of stayed there because they didn't hear me when I first started.
Well, I believe that technique is called you fake it until you make it.
Yeah, it was sort of weird. Like I'd start off by sticking to the playlist and being a real good boy, and then by the end, I would just play anything I wanted because it's 2, 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
It's like, what the hell? In fact,
2 hours of NWA.
I actually played Pachelbel's Canon. But the way I said it was a Saturday night. I should have gotten in trouble for this. I said, look, in about 25 minutes' time, I'm going to play the best rooting song of all time. So drop your pingers now.
Yeah.
I can't believe I actually said that.
And there's a lot of people getting around town who remember that.
Yeah, vaguely, yeah. But it was very rock and roll back in those days. It was very fly by the seat of your pants, and and that's when I met Helen, and we ended up doing breakfast and all that sort of stuff.
How did you go amongst the career animals? Because that's you see, like particularly in comedy, there's people that turn up every night with a microphone in hand, and they're going for the crown jewels, which you stumbled across.
Well, mate, see, that was the weird thing. I never came up through stand up. I'd never done stand up. I'd done cabaret, and then did Good News Week, and so a lot of the people on the show were stand ups, and it was always. It was like a monkey on my back.
Yeah.
So just before I turned 50, I thought, I really should give this a go.
Yeah.
And I booked a gig, and I died like a dog in the street.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely died like a dog. And it was weird because, like,
It was a clanger.
all those years of Good News Week, if I said something, people would often laugh.
Yeah.
And then they'd applaud. I did find out later there was a sign that said applaud, but so I was used to getting good feedback. And I got home, my wife said, she said, look, you don't have to do this. And I went, no, fine. And then eventually, I got booked to a bunch of gigs in Adelaide. I remember saying, my wife came with me. I said, look, if this doesn't work, I'll do something. Fuck it. I'm 50. I really don't need it. And it was so much fun. On the last night, I really wanted to thank the Adelaide crowd. I was performing at the Rhino Room, which is a great room. I thought, what can I give them that they never had? What can I give back to Adelaide? So I walked on with 2 garbage bags, and I said, you've been so good to me, Adelaide. Who likes hotel towels? And I'd nicked about 2 dozen towels from the hotel and started throwing hotel towels out into the audience. I won't mention the name of the hotel. That was fun.
That's a good little. Either way, they're going home happy.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, look, the stand-up thing is not something it's not my bread and butter. No. I basically, look, I'll be honest, I did it because I get a fair amount of corporate work.
Yeah.
And if you've got a half-hour, pretty clean routine, it makes corporate work a lot easier.
Yeah.
And also, you look at the great stand-ups, and you're right, they're there, 5 nights a week with a mic in hand. And that's a young person's game.
Yeah.
I should have done it 35 years ago.
Yeah. So how did you find the transition going from radio to television? Was it...
You had to shave.
So it came naturally to you?
Well, you see, you have to remember, most of the TV I did was a panel show, which is basically exactly what we're doing now.
Yeah.
And which I think was good because radio, you have a vague idea where you're going, but you learn to improvise. And that was pretty much... the nice thing about telly was I got free clothes.
Yeah.
And particularly because, back in those days, I'm a fat bastard now, but I was a really fat bastard then. So they couldn't just get me suits off the rack, so I used to get freaking tailor-made suits on Channel 10's expense account. And then at the end of the year, I'd go, look, this this cashmere jacket's not going to fit anyone else. I may as well just keep it. I got so much free clothes.
A cashmere jacket.
Yeah, and you know the best thing about the cashmere sports jacket, which I'd always wanted, a camel hair cashmere sports jacket. I wore it on camera once, and I sweated like the defendant. And they said, "Don't wear it again." I'll just take it home. I'd always wanted one of those jackets.
Can you take this home and hot wash it for us? Thanks.
Like, you're a young man on the Jays.
Yeah, I was. I by the time I did breakfast, I was just turning 30.
Okay.
So I was a little bit older, but I had long black hair then, so I didn't look.
Yeah. You look like a rock dog.
No, I look like the I look like the drummer's roadie's assistant.
Yeah, right.
The guy that hangs around bands.
Yeah,
That's what I look like.
What was it like? I guess I'm thinking back to the glory days of radio here, and you see the Adam Spencers of the world, and you even hear like Marique Hardy and Osher, with his Channel V days. You're around artists all the time. You're around musicians all the time. You're probably at all of the concerts and all the festivals. Was there a bit of living going on there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was a bit.
Who would have been your band? Who was your partners in crime there?
They're the usual suspects. If I mention too many names, people will sue me. But look at if you saw who I was hanging around with, and you saw me then. It was pretty wild. It was amazing that we actually got through it. I mean, you talk about concerts. This is one of those things where I can always pull this out of the bag when people say, "Well, what's the best gig you've ever been to?" I was like, "Well, I saw Nirvana at the first big day out." It's like, oh, really? So you saw the Lime Spiders at the Hope Tonight? I saw Nirvana.
Yeah.
And then years later, this is always my big one. This is the only thing that I've ever done that my nephew's impressed by. Dave Grohl and I stole a bottle of bourbon from a press conference, went out into a laneway and drank most of it.
Dave Grohl, okay, that's a good partner in crime, I guess.
Yeah. No, I've ended up in places, and there are those moments when you're lying and when you're sitting at an airport the next day going, okay, if the Qantas lounge is that way, I'm in Melbourne. Okay, good. As my doctor said to me recently, he said, "What? You've never done that?"
No, but it's a good reference point.
Melbourne, right? As my doctor said to me last year, he said, "You don't get a second." He said, "You don't get a second chance, and you've had 4." And I mean, fine. I'll give up the smokes. I'll cut back on the drinking, and all the rest is gone.
Yeah. And then, in the midst of all this, you were one of, as we mentioned it to you outside, Troy Cassadaly came on the other day.
Good luck.
And there's a couple people that exist in the public eye, in public life, who are degenerate South Sydney Rabbitohs fans. He's one of them. You're one of them. Yep. Andrew Denton.
Oh, Mad Dog.
Yeah, there's plenty of them.
Yep. Ray Martin. Don Lane.
James Packer.
I actually got to go to Don's apartment a couple of times, and he's a lovely old bloke. He was very sweet. It was that weird thing, like if you're my age. I'm like how Andrew would go, I've done it. But shit, you look at Don Lane, and there should be a set of speakers and a channel changer to the right hand side of him. It's like, that's Don. I'd be in the cab with my wife going, "It's Don Lane."
Yeah.
Even though I grew up in Newcastle, you have to remember, I was born in 1961. The Knights didn't exist then.
Yeah.
And the 3 biggest teams, if you lived outside of the Sydney urban area, were St George, South, and the Tigers.
Yeah.
And I always maintained that we had 3 voices of authority in my house: my father, the Pope, and Eric Sims.
Yeah, right.
and it could change. And I'm a Bunny's tragic.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the bad years then.
Oh shit! Okay, the best way I can describe the bad years was me and a mate at the Sydney Football Stadium. Tiny crowd. It's raining. And we've held the Bears to a 17-all draw. And me and the other bunnies, and my mate was a Bears fan, and we're on our feet clapping the team off. And he went, "What are you clapping for? You didn't win." I said, "Mate, we didn't lose."
17-all draws a good score.
Yeah, against the Bears. When the Bears weren't that flashback in that time either. Look, it was tough. It was, because it's that thing when you're a kid, you expected your team to win the grand final or be in the grand final, and then, then 89, where we're minor premiers, and then the 90s was a long, harsh, dark decade.
Yeah.
And then when we got back, it was like, then we got kicked out, which is appalling. Mm-hmm. And then we get back, it's like, oh, it's good, but, and then, mind you, my favourite story of the night of the 2014 grand final, my mate Tony Squires, the sports channel, I've gone along with Tone, so we had to do something in the Millennial Room. So I'm wearing a suit, and I just had a virtual crew cut. Now, you've got to be a bit of a rugby league tragic to get the punchline of the story. There's a couple of Bulldogs fans come up, and one goes, "Great, mate, just want to say, mate, the best team win tonight." I said, "Oh, yeah, mate, thank you very much." He turns around, his mate goes, "Who was that?" He goes, "Dickhead, that was Graham Richardson, CEO of South." Which I loved.
Richard.
Yeah, well, no, think about it. Yeah. I was like, yeah, fair enough. And look, the last 5 minutes of the grand final, Tony's virtually got me on video because I think from the moment GI went over, I was in tears.
Yeah.
I just cried.
Yeah.
And the next 3 days, my wife said,
"You down there at the Wolfpack?"
"Oh, mate, seriously, the next 3 days, my wife describes it as the end of school."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That feeling, just this party just kept on rolling.
Yeah. Like, how about how they closed all the pubs? Like,
In Redfern.
after they won, the cops, they just came up and said, "Just shut the fucking doors."
Yeah.
Just shut the
They
doors.
took the horses into the pubs.
Yeah.
Police horses wearing bunny socks.
It was funny. I ran into Adam Hills and I said, "Hillsy, I thought you were going to be in England." He said, "Oh, I got a back." But my favourite was Denton because there was always this thing midway through the season. It's like, oh, no, I'm keeping grand final week clear, and then you think you're going to jinx them. So Andrew had agreed to go on a holiday to his wife to China, and I texted him. I said, "Look, mate, it's going to cost me a fortune, but I'll text you a live update." And he texted me back and said, "I'm in the stadium. It's a long story, but I think there was a helicopter involved."
Good grief.
Yeah.
There must be a lot of money at the ABC. Helicopters, penthouses.
Channel 7 too. Speaking of Andrew, and speaking of some of these, these public figures, were you ever called upon? Was there a duty to your club? Because I know, they'd get anyone who could talk to get up at these fundraisers or these rallies.
I spoke my fair share of fundraisers. You did what you could. It was like, if the club called, you were there. You were there.
And how did you feel when it got, when everything kind of came back to life?
Okay.
There was a divide.
Oh yeah, it was, and I was one of those people backing what happened with Rusty, and it took a while from that time for some people to reconcile their differences, but it's just the passion of the game. I'm not going to put shit on anyone.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, doesn't matter what side you're on. There's a family of 4 Northern English boys who are going to take you to a premiership.
Oh, mate, the bravest thing I have ever said, the bravest gag I've ever said in my life was I was doing a function for the players, and the Burgess boys were there, and I said, "Look, guys, I just want to thank you for all the strength and the passion that you brought to the club, and also on behalf of every bloke over 40, geez, your mum's hot." And I got the glare from Sam. I got the glare.
Don't know about that one, Mikey.
and fortunately, Matt King broke the tension by going, "He's fucking right."
The big afro, the water boy.
My favourite moment was actually at that function. We're down at the bars at Clavelli, and really hard to crack jokes in front of the players after a yoga session at Clavelli bars.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was actually meeting up with a mate to have a drink next door at the pub, the pub down Clavelli, and watching all the players leave. And classic, young sportsmen done well. So we're talking top of the line Commodores, Beamers, driving off.
Yeah.
Apart from Matt King, who's driving a retro 60s combi van with his sideshow bob haircut. And I said, I like him.
Yeah, he was running
yeah.
the yoga though, wasn't he? That's his missus runs the yoga.
I'm not saying underrated because everyone knows how good he was, but he's a bloody good player, Matt King.
Yeah. Underrated in terms of speed, for sure.
Yeah. He won a lot of rings too.
Yeah. Some didn't count, some did. When we go back to a good news week here, like Hamish Blake, get around town with him. We had him for an interview the other day, and people driving past going, and they yell at him, "I listen to you every day." And he goes, "Do you hear that? I haven't been on radio for 5 years."
I know.
Do people still see you and they think that you?
Oh yeah.
They hold you in that place.
Yeah. Okay, I'll tell you the story. I'm in Newcastle a couple of years back, at the Delaney Hotel.
Yeah.
Catching up with some old mates. It was my turn to go shout in. I'm a very happily married man. But I got up the bar and this young woman, say 20s. She goes, "You Mikey Robbins?" I went, "Yeah." She said, "Oh my God, my nan thinks you're hot." And I said, "Oh fuck yeah, I'm now that guy." My nan.
I'm now Don Lane.
Yeah. And I thought, well, it's Newcastle. How old could nan be? But so it's funny. Yeah, because I haven't done a lot. I've been writing for the past few years, and I haven't done a lot of telly. So I do get a lot of I know you.
Yeah.
And it is sort of funny. I think it's been, I don't know how many years since Good News Week was on, but it was a show that the people who liked it really liked it.
Yeah.
So and it's nice to have done that. And also too, bought me a nice apartment, and I didn't have to rehearse.
Well, it was averaging what 800,000.
Oh mate, we used to have crisis. We used to have crisis meetings. This is how long ago it was. We used to have crisis meetings if we reached 750,000, which is a hit show these days.
That's through the roof these days.
I know the whole nature of the beast has changed.
Yeah.
Which
So McDermott,
little fella,
Victorian stock, is he?
Well, actually born in South Australia, which explains a lot.
Yeah.
But no, Canberra. Grew up in Canberra.
Yeah, right.
His dad worked for the tax office. Which I don't know why that's funny.
So explains a lot.
One of a huge Irish Catholic family,
But he'd come from a troupe too.
Oh, the Doug Anthonys.
Yeah, the Doug Anthonys.
Yeah,
so what was it like, kind of having to become his new crew?
Well, I never had a sense of that. In fact, it was funny because I spent 10 years of my life working with Paul, and I always think, this sounds weird, because I went and saw when the Dougs got back together and watching him and Tim on stage together, and it reminded me that I felt like Denny Green.
Yeah.
Do you know who Denny Green was? He was the guitarist from Wings.
All right.
So I always felt like I was like he and Tim together with John and Paul. Yeah. I was the guitarist from Wings. I was good. I was there for and we got on really well. We had a great relationship. But that thing Tim and Richard had was just. The first time I met them,
you were a Foo Fighter.
Oh yeah, mate, I was a fucking Foo Fighter. I was the Foo. Mind you, the Foo Fighters had more hits than Nirvana, and they're still going. Maybe they should stop, but they're still going. No, Paulie. The first time I saw Paulie was I was with the Castanet Club, and it was when the Adelaide Fringe Festival was biennial, and the Castanets had won the 2 years before I joined the group. Best on Fringe, and then we turned up and presenting the award to these three young blokes from Canberra called the Doug Anthonys. So I said good day to him then. And then a couple of years later, I was doing McFeast at the ABC Libby Gore's sports show, and I think it might have been end of season because he was there for the party, and I had a chat to him then. And I'm going to be honest, the next time I saw him was shooting the pilot for Good News Week.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We wasn't like we were besties or we were mates or anything. And I'll never forget, we were halfway through shooting the pilot, and we've been putting shit on each other, even though we just met. And I sort of looked at him, and he looked at me and went, "Yeah, this will work."
Yep.
Yeah.
Felt the chemistry there.
And well, the thing about Paul, I describe Paul as the hand grenade guy.
Yeah.
If a comedy hand grenade rolls in the foxhole, Paul will throw himself on it.
Yeah.
I've never seen a bloke in an improvised situation who'll dig as deep to make something work. I mean, the man's got a work ethic like nobody's business.
Yeah.
Well, okay, a quick story. Steve Abbott was the Sandman. People might remember the Sandman. And Andrew Denton, I was mentioning before, Andrew and Paul. So Steve and I and Andrew and Paul are at an art gallery just around the corner from where we are now, in Batuta. And we're at this art gallery, and Steve and I walk in one direction, and we both looked over at the other guys, and I said to Paul the next day, I said, "What were you and Denton talking about?" He said, "Oh, we were looking over at you and Steve." And we said, look at them, the two laziest men in Australian comedy. He said, what were you and Steve talking about? I said, we were looking over at you saying, look at them, the two most uptight pricks in Australian comedy.
And everyone's getting paid the same.
Everyone's having fun. Everyone's having fun.
Everyone's got Porsches.
Never had a Porsche.
Not yet.
Never had a Porsche.
When was the moment when you, we always talk about this with our guests, when you went back home to Newcastle and realised you were a big shot?
Right, okay. I went to Newcastle High. So it was Good News Week was in like its third year at the ABC, which it had been a small cult show, then it built. By the time we hit the third year, we were regularly amongst its top shows for the week. And in fact, beating commercial shows. It was.
Yeah.
So I got called back to my old high school, Newcastle High, to give the valedictorian speech to the young students, where I gave some speech about being interested in politics. And before I had a chance to think that my shit didn't stink, I looked down and in the front row was $30 million worth of Silverchair.
They were already there.
Yeah. Daniel and the boys were all in year 12. It was
They were way bigger deal than you.
way bigger. Mate, mate, seriously, they were about to go off on their first US tour. And it was weird. It was weird afterwards. I was chatting to Daniel, my wife, and I was supposed to go to the Central Coast to spend the weekend at a place there. And he went, we're going to the Cricketer's Arms for a drink. And I turned, like, the look on my wife's face said, hey, do you mind if I go with these schoolboys and have a few drinks? And she went, why? I said, well, it's the Cricketer's Arms. It's where I had my 15th. I shouldn't have said that.
That's all right.
But yeah, no, that was a funny moment. I don't know, big moments like actually you mentioned Troy Casadei during the Olympics. Sam and I emceed the gig he was on with a whole bunch of other people down in the Domain. That was like 16,000 people. That was wild.
Yeah.
And being on stage with the Dalai Lama, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty. I've always got that one.
Yeah. Yeah, not many people. He hasn't travelled much either, does he?
Well, I can always pull these three stories out of a hat when people say, I mentioned the best gig. And I say, well, what was your best New Year's Eve? Okay, I'm about to get ready. I'm about to fucking name drop bigly.
Yeah.
I spent a New Year's Eve with Billy Connolly on his yacht in the middle of Sydney Harbour.
Wow.
That was great. And the other thing about Never Meet Your Heroes, and he couldn't have been a nicer, funnier, warmer host. He was just a lovely bloke.
Yeah, he was...
lovely guy.
He was a perfect example of meeting your heroes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also too, he was probably in his 60s then, and he was wearing... You've got to be fit to pull off a white linen suit.
You do.
Yeah. And you've also got to be clean, tidy.
Yeah. Well, but he was showing off where he just had frangipanis tattooed on his feet. I went, yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
Now you've delved into history now.
Yeah.
Quirky history. You're obviously an author, and you're working on one now.
Yep.
And you've been working on and you've published a couple others, but you're also working on a podcast. Heroes and Howlers. Tell us the setup there. What's the theme? What's the format there?
Well, what it came from was a long lunch a bit over a year ago. In fact, it came to the Doug Anthony All Stars. Tim Ferguson liked to throw these lunches. And this other bloke arrived first, and then a couple of hours later, he and I were the last to leave. And his name was Paul Wilson, and he said, what are you up to? And we just started telling history, because as I found out, Paul actually studied history at Oxford and has a masterate, and is a real historian, has published proper books and everything. And I just finished my first book, 7 Deadly Sins, which is about food, had come out. And I'd written Reprehensible, which came out last year, but it was in that period where the publishers were holding it back for a while.
Yeah. And
so I sent Paul just an email of the rough edit. Thank God, because he found 3 huge fucking historical errors on it, mate. So he fixed them up. And then we just thought the idea was to try and do a history podcast, but a lot of them are very dry and very academic, and try and capture what it was that when we first met at the pub. So make it sound like 2 guys at the pub, because the basis for the podcast is, there are big significant events we look at, but the first thing is it a good story?
Yep. Is
there something a bit weird about this one? Is there something... Okay, everyone knows about the fall of the Berlin Wall, but probably don't know that the main cause was a really shit-house press conference given by these German official.
Yeah.
So, and that was the starting point. And then we started working on it, and COVID came, which was like,
Yeah.
But it was actually good because when we first started doing it, we were what's that thing? We just met each other. So by the time we came and started recording the podcast, we'd actually worked up a lot more personal rapport.
Yeah.
So that, a bit like everyone else, 2020 was a bit of a holding pattern.
Yeah.
So by the time we came in earlier this year and started recording them, we sort of knew what we were doing, and it's a lot of fun. And the great thing about working with Paul is I know the dates are going to be right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no, I think.
Yeah. And also too, the guy's a really good storyteller. He's got that great English accent.
Yeah.
So our voices sound pretty good together, which is always. And also too, he's a really easy bloke to hang out with.
Yeah.
And it's a fun way to spend a day. We come up with a concept for an idea. We send a few emails back and forward. We sit in his place and we run it. We go, oh yeah, that works. We then come in and record it, and then we go to the pub.
Yeah.
So
At least it's not the other way around.
No. I've tried that.
The vodcast.
I once did an episode of Live and Sweaty at the ABC. So drunk. A friend of mine called me the next morning and said, "You were funny last night." And I said, "I didn't see you last night." And she said, "You're on the television." And I went, "Oh, fuck, I was." That was the last time. That was like 98, 97, 96, no, 94. That was the last time I ever had a drink before I went in front of a camera. It's a terrifying.
Lying in bed. What?
What? I was. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I stopped the cab on the way home to throw up. Actually, I stopped the cab on the way there to throw up.
You held it together.
Yeah, I held it just.
Well, we are. There's a lot of gold in Heroes and Howlers. And,
Yeah, we're loving doing it.
Yeah. You're coming towards the end of the first season, I guess. What would have been some of the highlights you've thrown around in there?
For me, some of my favourite stuff was finding out that Louis XIV lost his virginity to a one-eyed courtesan called, bizarre enough, One-Eyed Kate, and that the guy basically, even though he was the longest-serving monarch in European history, soon up until Queen Elizabeth II. For most of his reign, he had his pants around his ankles.
Yeah, right.
He was a rooting machine. Also, too, finding out that the Fourth Crusade was basically a bunch of drunk yobbos tearing up the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
For me, I love history. I mean, I've always been a history nerd. For me, what I really love is finding out that, like Christopher Columbus, the reason he discovered the Americas was his maths was shithouse. It's finding out that the commonality between the stuff-ups we go through now.
Yeah.
They've always been there.
Yeah.
We've always been a bit stupid. We've always been a bit idiotic, and yet we sort of stumble through.
Yeah, and the stupidity now, I mean, I've hit some good theories out there now from the conspiracist camp, is that our Prime Minister has purposely fucked up this vaccine order to save us from it.
PJ O'Rourke, the right-wing humorist,
Yeah.
he had one brilliant line. He said, "Ignorance is the ultimate renewable resource." And it was funny. For this book I'm working on now, which is called "Idiots, Follies, and Misadventures: Dumb as Our Constant Companion," it's this group that actually ended up being they morphed into the Seventh-day Adventists. Before that. And they had 5 goes at the Doomsday Date. 5 goes. And you think by the 5th time and you haven't ascended, you'd be thinking something's wrong.
And then, of course, they turned into Kellogg's.
Sanitarium.
Sanitarium.
Yeah. Skippy cornflakes. You know what? When you're a kid and you'd say to your relatives, you could tell they weren't cornflakes. You could tell. It was like, do you have variety packs when you were a kid? Your parents have a bite. Cocoa Pops go first, Rice Pops go second, Fruit Loops go first. And it was like, oh, fuck, I've got to eat the Sultana brand.
Yeah, Sultana brand. Yeah. It makes me regular and I'm only fucking...
Yeah, I'm 8.
I'm 8 and I'm regular.
Yeah. So, Mikey, everyone has a favourite part of history. What's yours? What do you go to?
My go-to tends to be the Victorians.
Yeah.
Because they're just weird. Because there's this weird combination of... Okay, I'll tell you a story from my last book, which is reprehensible. Queen Victoria's wedding. Albert was the big wowser. So he laid down stipulations for the bridesmaids that they basically couldn't have ever gone on a date. And in fact, their mothers had to be just as pure. Until the Prime Minister sat down and said, look, we couldn't find 12 women in all of Europe to satisfy this. So I always like the Victorians because there's that
Moral outrage.
the moral outrage, yet at the same time they're dirty people.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, you could just go forever. I think we'll be getting up to season 100 of Heroes and Howlers.
Oh, well, yeah. The most important thing is just when you put. The only rule I have is, can they sue me?
yeah. We'll have to go ancient history for that one. Well, thanks for joining us, Mikey.
I'd love to have a chat to you guys.
What's your tips for the 2021 season?
I'm going to go out on a limb here. Look, Penrith look unbeatable.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would say Souths will be there. Souths will be there. I think we might have a repeat of last year's grand final because every time you ride off the Storm, it's like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Emotionally, what I would love, and trust me, it would be a full house. And look, you might have laughed at me up until last weekend, but 3 and 4 on the ladder, South St George grand final would be that would be the game.
Yeah.
That would be the game.
That would be Wayne's legacy.
Yeah. It was like, I'm going out in this. I'm going out in this.
And then I'm going to retire in this, and I'll come back in a year with the Southwest Ipswich Jets, the Brisbane expansion club.
That will be captained by Cam Smith.
Yeah, and Sam Walker.
And Wayne will end up being the only coach to win the Dally M Coach of the Year with a Zimmer frame.
We can't bring him down with an axe, that's for sure. No. Thanks for joining us, Mikey Robbins. Hero and Howlers out now on all good streaming services and wherever else you get a podcast. Thank you.